Welcome, everyone. I'm going to wait a few minutes for people to join. But if you want to type in the chat where in the world you're from, that would be great. And I'm going to mute you for the presentation, and then we can do questions at the end if you have any. Where does everyone live? You want to type it in the chat? I'm going to get started in just a couple minutes. People are still joining. If you want to type in the chat where you live, that would be good to know. Or if you have any specific questions you want me to answer today, you can type those in the chat as we go along as well. We'll just give it another minute, then we'll get started. Got more people joining.
The dog hair clogged.
And I'm going to mute everyone as you come in. Okay, I see. Now I see the chat. Utah, awesome. New Zealand, living in Switzerland. New Zealand, Bozeman, Montana. Okay. All parts of the world and a lot of people in mountain time. So that's cool. All right. Anyone else want to say where they're from? What time is it in New Zealand? I hope it's not the middle of the night. All right, let's get into it. I don't want to keep you guys waiting for too long since you've been on time. I'm going to share my screen with you. I have a little presentation as well. All right, so as you know, we are going to get into 5 hidden causes of insomnia. I'm really excited to share this with you. Can everyone hear me okay too? Should make sure about that before I get too far. All right. Not being able to sleep is terrible. You have the misery of having partied all night without any of the satisfaction. So true, right? For any of us who have struggled to sleep, we know that this is true. You feel miserable, but you didn't have any fun doing it. So I want to tell you first how I got into this. I originally started as a pediatric sleep consultant because my son did not sleep well as a baby. And it made such a big difference. Or I hired a sleep consultant, and it made such a big difference that then I became a pediatric sleep consultant. But the ironic thing is that even once my son was sleeping through the night at 6 months old, I still wasn't sleeping. And my insomnia started in late pregnancy, which I figured was just hormones and there wasn't much I can do about it. But it continued even after he was born, even after he was sleeping through the night, really for another year and a half after he was sleeping through the night at 6 months old, until I finally decided that I had to do something about it. And so luckily, the woman I trained with for pediatric sleep also offered an adult sleep certification. So I learned a lot about what I call the foundations of sleep, or the sleep rules, right? Things like you want to exercise every day, you want to eat healthy, you don't want to drink caffeine too late in the day, you don't want to watch TV before bed, like all of these basic rules. And I actually followed a lot of those rules, and they really helped. And so that's when I got excited to start working with adults and be able to help adults as well be able to sleep. If you guys will mute as you come in, that would be great. And then, so I was sleeping great, or yeah, pretty well. And when I was struggling to sleep, I would try to go to bed early because I was so exhausted. But then it would take forever for me to fall asleep. And then I would wake up at 3 or 4 in the morning and not be able to fall back asleep until 6 when it was time for my son to get up. So I was pretty miserable. I still had a full-time job at this point. I had started my side business as a pediatric sleep consultant, and I had a young baby, and I wasn't sleeping. Worst of all, I felt like a fraud because here I am helping families sleep and I'm not sleeping myself. So luckily I was able to turn that around, and I was great for another year or two. And then I went through a really stressful time in my life, and I started not sleeping again. And all of those things that I was doing, all of those rules that I was following, they did not help anymore. And luckily I learned about doing lab testing, and I did some labs. I found out that I had a parasite, I had hormone imbalance, which had probably been since pregnancy or post-pregnancy. I had mineral imbalances, I had food sensitivity. So all of these things were going on in my body that I didn't even know about. And so now that is what I do, is I do these lab tests to find out why you can't sleep, because a healthy body should sleep normally. And so please mute yourself as you come in would be great. Sorry, I'm just going to see if I can mute people here. I don't know if I can do it in present mode. Please mute yourself as you come in. Thank you. All right, so yeah, so that's when I learned about this lab testing and getting to the root of why you can't sleep. So today I'm going to be going beyond those basic foundations. I'm not going to be talking about not watching TV before bed and not drinking caffeine after 2. We already know of all that, right? Like if you struggle to sleep for any period of time, that's what Google is going to tell you to do. And it's really frustrating when those things don't help at all. So I'm really going to get into the science here of what could be happening in your body. And it's not that those foundations, those sleep rules aren't important. They are, and you absolutely want to start there if you aren't sleeping well. But if those things don't work, then there's definitely something more going on. Now, I also want to talk about what is insomnia. As a sleep disorder, insomnia has 5 very specific criteria that you have to meet to be diagnosed with the sleep disorder insomnia. It's things like how many times you wake up per night, how long you're awake each time, how much sleep you're actually getting. When I'm talking about insomnia, I'm talking about a very general not sleeping well, either having a hard time falling asleep, waking up multiple times through the night, or waking up once a night for a very long period of time, or waking up too early in the morning, and feeling, unrested the next day too. So that's what I'm talking about as general insomnia. You know what mine looked like. It was having a hard time falling asleep. It was being awake in the night for 2 hours. I know some of you can go days without sleep. So there's a very broad spectrum that I'm talking about with insomnia, but I'm talking about any sleep issues where you aren't sleeping well and you don't feel rested when you wake up. All right, so let's talk about what you're going to learn today. So we're going to talk about the number one hormone that sabotages your sleep, how stress affects your sleep and your health, the 5 hidden causes of insomnia, how to find out what those causes are. I want to give you also some things you can try today to improve your sleep. So if you don't want to do this testing, I'm still going to give you some places to start. And then we're going to talk about the simple steps as to how we can uncover the root cause of your sleep issues and then fix it for good. So to get started, does anyone know the number one hormone that sabotages your sleep? It is cortisol. Now, there are other reasons why you possibly can't sleep, but cortisol is a really big one. If your body is making or releasing too much cortisol at night when it shouldn't, then it's going to wake you up. And cortisol kind of has a bad rap, but it's this very important hormone that wakes us up in the morning and keeps us alert throughout the day. And it's going to suppress melatonin during the day as well. It pretty much tells our body that it's daytime. It's also an important part of our stress response, so our fight or flight response, which I'll talk about in a minute. But it is this very important hormone, and it helps give us this heightened memory and attention, this increase in blood pressure. It's actually a pain reliever. It can increase blood sugar. It can decrease serotonin. So it has a lot of different functions that are very necessary if it's there at the right time in the right amounts. Now, when we talk about stress, there are different kinds of stress. So of course, there is when your life is in danger. I live in the mountains of Wyoming. So I say if a bear is chasing me in the mountains, my body is going to release cortisol and adrenaline and other stress hormones that are going to help me run from or fight that bear. And so it's going to do things like increase my blood pressure, increase my heart rate, minimize digestion and kind of non-essential functions. It's going to help me focus and concentrate so that I can think quickly and know how to react. Now, our body doesn't know the difference between being chased by a bear and the stressors of modern life. So if you think about it, it's only in the past couple hundred years that our lives have changed so much, that our food has changed, our busyness has changed, technology has changed so much. I mean, the light bulb was only invented 150 years ago. So much has changed. And if we are stressed from too much work, from too much running around, and of course, even more traumatic things like going through a divorce or losing a loved one, our body responds the same way to that stress. It's still going to give you that fight or flight response, even though you don't need to run from or fight something. Our bodies just don't know the difference between that kind of stress. And then there can also be hidden stressors going on in your body that I'm going to tell you about today that you don't even know are there. And they're still causing you all this stress or causing your body to constantly release cortisol. And over time, that is definitely not a good thing. Cortisol also suppresses melatonin, our sleepy hormone. So if your body's releasing too much cortisol at night, then it's also suppressing melatonin. So it's a double whammy. It's telling your body it's daytime and not nighttime. And so you're just going to be awake. I want to talk about cortisol dysregulation, or when cortisol gets out of balance. And this will help explain how stress affects your body in the long term. So ideally, our cortisol levels are in this green box in homeostasis. It means we are adapting well. We're not in the middle of a stressful event. And this is the levels in blood that your cortisol levels should be. And then when a stressful event happens, say you're being chased by a bear in the mountains, or you get in a fight with your spouse, or you're running late for work, you're going to go into this yellow box. Your cortisol is going to increase, and you're going to be in this acute distress. So this is in the moment stress. And it actually feels good to be in this yellow box because, again, you have that focus, you have that concentration. Cortisol is a pain reliever. It's an anti-inflammatory. And so things feel pretty good in this yellow box. And ideally, then once that stressful event happens, then your cortisol levels go back down and you go back down into that green box. You're back in homeostasis, you're back in balance. But if you have constant stress, chronic stress, ongoing stress, you're going to stay in this yellow box for a while. And again, you're feeling good there. This is how people get addicted to stress, how they get addicted to being busy or working too much or, performing under pressure. Because for a while, when your body is able to release all this cortisol, it does help you perform really well. And so you're in this yellow box. If your cortisol levels are high, of course, this can cause sleep issues. So some people's insomnia starts when cortisol is this high, but otherwise you feel pretty good. And then if it's this constant ongoing stress, eventually you don't go back down into homeostasis. You start going down the other side of the bell curve toward that orange box. And this is as your body isn't able to adapt anymore. It isn't able to make enough cortisol anymore. And so you're down in this orange box, what we call the compensatory phase, because your body is trying to compensate and produce enough cortisol, but it's not really able to. And what I want you to note here too is that the cortisol levels are the same for homeostasis, that green box, as they are for that orange box when you're in the compensatory phase. So if you go get your cortisol levels tested by your doctor and they say, oh, it's in range, everything's fine. Yes, it is in range and that is normal, but you're probably in this orange box here, which is not where you want to be. This is where you're having symptoms. This is where you can still be having sleep issues. You might have other symptoms like brain fog and feeling tired a lot and not digesting food well and kind of minor things like that. Nothing that you rush to the doctor for, but you start having some symptoms. And if you don't do anything about it, and a lot of times it's going to take more than diet and exercise to get back over the hump and back into homeostasis. So if you don't do anything about it, you're going to keep going down that curve into the red box, which is exhaustion, not where we want to be, right? And this is when, symptoms get worse. You might start getting diagnosed with a disorder or a disease or autoimmunity and things like that. So that is how cortisol dysregulates over time. All right. So I kind of want to show you what it looks like when I test for it. This is from the Dutch test. It's a dried urine test for comprehensive hormones. And you take 4 to 5 samples in a 24-hour period. So we see what your levels are at different times of the day. And so as you can see, in this person's levels, this waking level here is actually representative of what happened during the night. Because it's a urine test, when you take the urine, you're testing what happened in the past since the last time you urinated. So in the middle of the night, this person's cortisol is extremely high, higher than it even is in the daytime. And then it goes downhill from there. And so this isn't following the normal pattern that we want. We should see it lowest first thing in the morning, and then it spikes really high within a couple hours of waking, and then it gradually decreases throughout the day. That's the pattern that we want. So this is an example of someone with really high cortisol at night. And so this is definitely going to be explaining why they aren't sleeping well. All right. So let's get into the 5 hidden causes of insomnia. So we're going to talk about blood sugar, gut health, liver, hormones, and minerals. And these first 3 can cause high cortisol at night. So I like to say that Dutch test tells me what's going on with your cortisol and your other hormones, which I'll talk about later. And then the next few tests that I do that look at blood sugar, gut health, liver health example, they are going to cause cortisol to be increased at night. And I will explain why soon. Someone's asking if there is a recording. Yes, I will be sending out the replay of this. So don't worry if you have to leave early or can't finish watching it. I would definitely be sending that out. Thanks for asking. All right, so first we're going to talk about blood sugar. So we want to be on the mellow roller coaster on the bottom there. What, what it says is the whole food glide. So yes, when you eat food, your blood sugar spikes a little bit, your body releases insulin, it goes down a little bit, and you're on this very minor roller coaster, and that is normal. Now, if you say you start your day with a donut and a cup of coffee, your blood sugar is going to spike really high. And then your body's going to release insulin and it's going to drop your blood sugar really low. And then your body's going to release cortisol and it's going to tell your body that it wants energy. It's going to crave more sugar, sweets, refined, bread, things like that, because it wants that quick energy. And then if you eat that, then you are continuing spiking blood sugar really high and you're on this very extreme roller coaster that you see at the top there. And if that is happening all day, that is also going to be happening in the night. And like I mentioned, whenever your blood sugar drops too low, your body releases cortisol because it is stressed. It's telling your body it needs energy. And so this is a big reason why I see people waking up. If you go to bed around 10, waking up around 2 a.m. or about 4 hours later after you wake up. Kind of depends on when you ate dinner last, but this is a common reason why people wake up just a few hours after going to sleep because their blood sugar has dropped too low. So to avoid this roller coaster, you really want to focus on eating whole foods. You want to have plenty of protein and fat with every meal. I help my clients kind of get their ideal diet with what's called the metabolic typing diet, where we find your ideal ratio of carbohydrates, protein, and fat and balance it there. And that helps balance your blood sugar. And just so you know, some people eat perfectly healthy and still have blood sugar issues. And that's because as cortisol gets dysregulated, which I just talked about, then other systems in your body start to break down too. And for some people, it's blood sugar is one of the first things to break down. For those of us with sleep issues, it is our neural health tissue, our brain health tissue that starts to break down, causing insomnia, brain fog, memory loss, things like that. So you can eat perfectly healthy and still have blood sugar problems. Just want to tell you that. So one thing that can help to minimize this blood sugar wake up is to eat a small snack before bed. 100 to 200 calories, again, protein and fat, ideally your ideal ratios, and that will help steady your blood sugar for the night so it doesn't wake you up. All right. Now, the second thing that really contributes to insomnia is gut health. And there are actually 4 ways that your gut can cause insomnia. So I'm going to get into those. And just so you know, like all of my clients have gut issues. How severe it is definitely different for everyone, but there's no one who isn't sleeping well who has a healthy gut. It's just impossible, pretty much. And I'll show you the tests that I do to look for this. But the first way that the gut affects your sleep is something called dysbiosis, or this means an imbalance of good to bad bacteria. So if you think about sheriff and the outlaws back in the Old West days, we want more law people than outlaws, right? The law, the sheriff, the deputies, the police, whatever, they all keep the outlaws in check. And that's what we want with our balance of good bacteria to bad bacteria. And good bacteria are so important, especially for sleep, because they make most of our neurotransmitters. So these chemicals like dopamine, serotonin, GABA, and even melatonin, like 80 to 90% of each one of those is made in the gut. So we think of those as mental brain things, but they're actually made in the gut. And so if you don't have enough good bacteria, then they're not making those things and you can have a really hard time sleeping and feeling good. Now, another contributor to poor gut health is pathogens. So I think of these as the Billy the Kid of the outlaws, right? These are the worst of the worst. And so I'm talking about things like a parasite like Giardia, maybe you've heard of, a bacteria like H. pylori, or yeast like Candida. So all of these things are we tend to get them from contaminated food and water somewhat, especially parasites. And these creatures are nocturnal. And so it's at night that they are most active. They're eating, they're excreting, they're releasing a lot of toxins, and they're causing a lot of inflammation. And cortisol is an anti-inflammatory hormone. And so it's going to come to the rescue to deal with that inflammation, but it's also going to wake you right up. So this is a big reason why many of my clients wake up at 3 and 4 in the morning, is because they have these pathogens in their gut. And you really need to address these pathogens to restore gut health. All right, next way that gut contributes to insomnia is something called leaky gut. So ideally, I want you to imagine a coat zipper. Ideally, our gut should be like the zipper, where it's this barrier that doesn't let things through that aren't supposed to get through. So like a zipper keeps out cold air and dirt and things like that. That's what our gut should do. It's only going to let nutrients and things get into the bloodstream, and it's going to protect the gut wall, or it's not going to let things through that shouldn't get through. So you can see on the left here, a healthy gut, it has these tight junctions. Again, that's that physical barrier. These little hairs on top, these are called microvilli. These little finger-like things are actually little hairs. And they also act as a barrier. They help us absorb nutrients too. And so we really need the cells of our gut wall to be like this, to be very healthy. Now, if your gut wall starts getting damaged, if these cells start getting damaged, and this can happen from antibiotics, especially really destroy the gut wall, an unhealthy diet, processed foods, things like that, any kind of infections, low stomach acid, stress, even toxins, those NSAIDs like Advil and Tylenol. So all of those can break down the gut, and it destroys these tight junctions, and it destroys these fingers, and so the barrier isn't there. And then undigested food particles, antibodies, pathogens, immune cells, all these things that aren't supposed to get through into the bloodstream get through, and they cause a lot of inflammation. So now you know what happens when there's inflammation. Your body releases cortisol. When that's happening at night, it's going to wake you up. So having a healthy gut, again, is really key to sleeping well. Now, the last thing I want to talk about with the gut is food sensitivities. So if you're eating foods you're sensitive to, they are causing inflammation. And so I'm not talking about allergies like, kids who are allergic to peanuts and go into anaphylactic shock from eating peanuts. A sensitivity is a lot more minor. It's not always immediate. So it's really hard to tell if you react to a certain food. So that's why I do a food sensitivity test to find out what food your body isn't liking. And the idea is to eliminate those temporarily, to reduce that inflammation while we work on healing your gut so that you can tolerate most foods in the future. Now, there are other signs of an unhealthy gut that aren't related to digestion. Of course, digestive issues, bloating, gas, diarrhea, constipation, all of those things, definitely mean that your gut isn't healthy. But some other symptoms of an unhealthy gut are mood disorders, skin issues, hay fever, those seasonal allergies, hormone imbalance, and even autoimmunity. I want to show you kind of what some results from this GI map look like. This is a gastrointestinal map. It shows a lot of what's living in your gut, the good, the bad, the ugly. And so that we know what's going on. So this is H. pylori here, showing that this person has H. pylori. This is extremely common. It's estimated that 50% of the population has H. pylori. With my clients, it's about 85%. So definitely see a big correlation between H. pylori and sleep issues. And then if you see here, this normal bacteria flora, this phylomicrobiota, like there's a lot of high things there. So that is that dysbiosis. Well, I didn't show the opportunistic bacteria. That's what's next. And if those are high, and so you have, more opportunistic bacteria than good bacteria, then that's not a good thing. This here is showing a parasite. This is blastocystis hominis. This is one that I actually found out that I had from years ago and probably had it for 11 years before I realized it. Again, parasites are another common thing I see in a lot of my clients. And what's really cool about this test too is that it also gives me a lot more information. It shows how well you're digesting food. This is how well you're digesting fat and protein. It has a marker for liver health, which we'll talk about the liver next. And looks at how strong your immune system is in your gut. This is a marker for if you're reacting to anti-gliadin IgA, which is an antibody against gluten. And this calprotectin here shows how much inflammation there is. So I get a lot of information from this one test about what's going on in your different parts of your body, so we know what to address. All right, now let's get into liver health. I love this. I don't know if you watched Mad Men, but I watched all of Mad Men and they sure drank a lot. So I love that he's saying this. Your liver is your body's filter and protector. A lot of people, health, wellness practitioners say that it is the most important organ in your body for your health. It is, supposed to detoxify toxins. It's also critical for immunity, energy production, and digestion. Now, according to the Chinese clock, the liver is most active between 1 and 3 a.m. So if your liver isn't healthy, it can be contributing to you waking up at night. Some signs of liver digestion I have here, or liver congestion, excuse me. Congestion means that your liver has to deal with more toxins than it's able to. And so, imagine it's a bucket and it has all these toxins to deal with, and the bucket's overflowing. And those overflowing things are in the bloodstream, circulating around, causing lots of inflammation. So poor digestion can happen because the liver is supposed to make bile, which helps you break down fats and absorb fat-soluble vitamins A, D, E, and K. So if you have bloating, indigestion, or abdominal pain, there's a good chance your liver isn't healthy. Hormone imbalance, your liver is actually responsible for breaking down and removing hormones from your body. Weight gain, when toxins build up in your body, causes inflammation. And then when your body releases cortisol, cortisol makes your body hold on to fat and can cause blood sugar issues. So this can lead to weight gain as well. Skin problems, things like acne, rosacea, eczema, rashes, all of those things are a sure sign that liver toxins are building up in your body. Fatigue, because your liver helps make energy for your body as well. Chemical sensitivity, so if cleaning products and perfumes and things like that bother you, then you probably have too many toxins in your liver. Sugar and carbohydrate cravings, hormone and blood sugar imbalances lead to cravings are common when your liver isn't working well. And then, of course, sleep issues. Because if those toxins are circulating around, especially between 1 and 3 a.m. when your liver is most active, your body's going to release cortisol. It's going to wake you up. So I actually look at 2 tests to look for liver health. I showed you that marker on the GI map. And then I use the Dutch hormone test as well, because it shows how hormones are being metabolized in your body too. So I get a couple of different ways to look for liver health there. And of course, if you don't tolerate alcohol like me, then that's a sure sign that your liver is not happy. So that's something I'm working on myself. All right. So now we're going to get out of the cortisol cause of insomnia and get into hormone imbalance. So low estrogen, low progesterone can both cause insomnia. If you are on the pill, what the pill does is it suppresses estrogen and progesterone. It puts them at levels of postmenopausal women. And so they're going to be super low, and that can cause insomnia. I know a lot of people have insomnia from going on the pill or from pregnancy when hormones get depleted. Estrogen dominance, or if estrogen is higher than progesterone in women or testosterone in men, then that can cause insomnia. High testosterone in men or women, and low melatonin. So things that I am looking for there. I do always recommend testing for hormones without just going to the store and buying an estrogen cream or progesterone cream. Low estrogen and low progesterone can have the same symptoms. So hot flashes, headaches, weight gain, depression, anxiety, and mood swings. So because they're so similar, you don't know which one it is, and you don't want to start taking estrogen if actually the problem is that progesterone is too low and estrogen is too high. Then you're going to make things even worse. So causes of some of these low hormones are going to be, first of all, if cortisol is depleted over time, your sex hormones are going to be depleted too, because your body had to use all of its resources to make hormones to make cortisol. And so it doesn't have enough resources to make progesterone, estrogen, testosterone, and DHEA. And so that is the number one way how hormones get out of balance, or especially if they're low. But not eating enough cholesterol or fat, because that's what hormones are made of, is a cause of that. Chronic stress, of course, nutrient deficiencies. If your gut isn't healthy and isn't absorbing nutrients well, then you're not going to be able to make hormones very well. A poor diet, if you're sensitive to gluten and eating gluten. And childbirth and breastfeeding are going to obviously affect hormones too. But we just want to test and not guess for sure with hormones. All right. I just wanted to show you some quick tests here. Again, this is that Dutch test, that dried urine test. I'm looking at what the test shows for men and for women here. So this is an example of a male who is estrogen dominant because his estrogen is higher than his testosterone. And this is his cortisol pattern. So we see that more elevated at night compared to the others. So definite, no surprise here, what's causing his sleep issues. And what's really cool about this test is that it not only shows how much your body is making, so that's what this metabolized cortisol is here, it's also showing how much is available to be used. And sometimes these are different, as this one is. And so we would treat it very differently. So if you just got a blood test and found out that cortisol was high and you took something to lower cortisol, but actually what's available is already low, you're just going to be making things even worse. So this test is really important to show the differences there. And this is an example of someone who is postmenopausal. So the postmenopausal range is this purple range here, and her estrogen is a little lower than what it should be. Her testosterone is low, her DHEA is low, her cortisol is low. So she's all around very depleted hormones, because she's probably been depleted for a very long time. She's 62 years old. And again, she doesn't have that high cortisol in the night. It's actually super low and then spikes really high. So there's something else going on causing her sleep issues, possibly besides that cortisol being too high at night. All right, so the fifth hidden cause of insomnia is mineral imbalance. And what I use to test for this is a hair test. It's called a hair tissue mineral analysis. And you take a tiny bit of hair close to your scalp, so we see your mineral balance or your mineral status for the last 3 months. And there are a few different ways that mineral imbalance can cause insomnia. So one thing I see in a lot of people is what's called slow oxidation or slow metabolism. And ideally, when we're looking at these 4 minerals, so calcium, magnesium, sodium, potassium, these should all be in balance, like in range, about even with each other. And as you can see, calcium and magnesium are much higher than sodium and potassium. So this is what's called slow oxidation. And that means that the adrenals are slow, your thyroid's slow. I'm not saying there's actually anything wrong with the glands. It's just that they don't have the nutrients that they need. And it means that you aren't retaining sodium and potassium. And then calcium and magnesium can't dissolve. So it builds up in the soft tissue and they're bio-unavailable. They're not available to be used. Some symptoms of this are fatigue, depression, constipation, brain fog, and insomnia. Now, a calcium shell is when calcium is super high here like this. This is usually from trauma. Calcium actually blocks emotions. It's this very hard mineral, and so it kind of makes you, creates a shell, like an emotional shell as well. So if you've been through a traumatic time or traumatic event, then calcium can build up to kind of protect yourself from that. And this can also cause insomnia. You need what's called vitamin K2 to put calcium in the bones where it's supposed to go. And then we want to get all these other minerals back in balance too. Now, heavy metals here, things like uranium, arsenic, mercury, cadmium, lead, aluminum, all of these things, if they are circulating in your bloodstream, they're causing inflammation, they're stressing your body, they're causing it to release cortisol, and it can definitely wake you up. So that's why I look for heavy metals. And then a toxic metal called copper. We actually need copper in normal amounts, but when it's super high like this, it means that your body is copper toxic, and it's very unstable. And so it accumulates in your liver and your brain, and it can cause fatigue, anxiety, irritability, emotional outbursts, racing mind, and insomnia. So again, a lot of these mental, disorders that we talk about that we think are all in the mind can be from gut health and from mineral imbalance. And copper toxicity is more common in my female clients because birth control contributes to high copper. So does a vegan or vegetarian diet, because they tend to be really low in zinc, and zinc and copper work kind of opposite each other. And so when zinc is low, then copper can easily accumulate. So yeah, I see this in people too who have been vegan and vegetarian. And drinking from copper pipes obviously can cause this, and even swimming pools with chlorine tend to have some copper too. So people who swim a lot in chlorinated pools can get this copper toxicity. But all of these things cause insomnia. So, and I love this, one does not simply cure all disease with magnesium. And that is because, first of all, the minerals have to be in balance. So even if you are deficient in magnesium, if you take magnesium, but sodium and potassium are still really low, it's not necessarily going to help. And then you need other nutrients to absorb that magnesium, other minerals like boron and these first four minerals. And so if you aren't absorbing those because your gut isn't healthy, you can take all the supplements in the world, and it's not, that magnesium supplement isn't necessarily going to help because there's just more going on. It's not that simple, unfortunately. All right, so let's see what you can do now. I'm telling you about the testing, but I want to give you a place to start as well. So we already mentioned for blood sugar health, avoiding that refined sugar and carbohydrates, anything that's going to spike your blood sugar. Eating a balanced snack before bed can help as well with waking up in the night. For gut health, a probiotic. Bone broth helps heal the gut wall. Fermented foods help supply that beneficial bacteria. Vegetables, actually the fiber in vegetables actually feed the good bacteria. So the only reason we eat vegetables isn't just for nutrients, it's also for that good bacteria. Now I do want to say, like, a probiotic a day does not necessarily keep the doctor away, because if you have a pathogen in your gut, nothing is going to get your gut healthy until you get rid of that pathogen. Now for your liver, it can help to take a break from alcohol. I usually recommend 90 days, give your liver a chance to heal a little bit. Reducing toxins that you're bringing into your body is really going to help. So reducing pesticides in foods, chemicals in personal care and cleaning products. There's a great website by the Environmental Working Group called ewg.org. And they rate cleaning products, they rate foods for pesticides, they rate personal care products for how many chemicals are in them or how dangerous those chemicals are. So that's a great resource if you're trying to clean things up there. Liver support supplements can help, pretty much can't hurt anyone, I don't think. Things like herbs and other things you'll find in liver support supplements. Drinking warm lemon water first thing in the morning helps stimulate that bile production, helps activate the liver. And Epsom salt baths, that magnesium and the minerals in Epsom salts can actually pull toxins from the body. So that's another thing to try. For hormones, to start with, if you don't want to commit to all of these tests that I do, then you could get a simple hormone test, either by your doctor, ideally by a functional medicine practitioner. But that's a great starting point, because if your only problem is low progesterone and you can take progesterone and sleep better, then that's great. Again, as a functional medicine practitioner, like, I want to know why your hormones are low. It's probably because cortisol has been dysregulated for a long time. And there's more going on in your body. But if there can be a quick fix, then it's definitely worth starting there. And if none of these things help, then it's definitely time to test. It's time to find out what's going on in your body and figure it out so that you can sleep better. So this is what my program looks like. And then I'm going to get into two of my client stories. You can see like what their test showed and what we did and how they're doing now. But first, I just want to tell you about my program. My goal is to find everything in both your body and your mind that are keeping you awake. So I know I've been talking all about the body here because I think that it is what people don't know about. But of course, your mind can contribute to insomnia too. If you worry about bedtime, if you get so much anxiety before sleeping, if you think about how tired you are during the day, all of those negative thoughts and things are going to affect your sleep. And of course, like stress, mental, emotional stress is also going to affect your sleep. So I do address both, even though I'm telling you mainly about the body today. I'm getting to the root cause of why you can't sleep. So it's not applying any Band-Aids. It's not doing a sleeping pill that's just masking symptoms, really getting to the root cause. It's also testing instead of guessing. So I know a lot of you have probably tried so many different things, sleeping pills, supplements, gadgets, whatever it might be. And you're guessing, right? You're taking a stab in the dark. You're hoping that this thing will work or that thing will work. And then you get discouraged when it doesn't work. So we're just going to test instead. And then we know exactly what your body needs. And the whole goal of this is to restore your health, because I see not sleeping as a health issue, right? A healthy body sleeps well. So if you aren't sleeping well, there's something wrong. So I really work to restore your health, to improve your sleep in just a few months. It might have taken you years to get to this point where you aren't sleeping. You might have not been sleeping for years, but you can start sleeping better in just a few months. That's how quickly the body can heal itself. So I do 4 different tests, which I've mentioned all of them. I do the gut test, the GI map, that Dutch hormone test, the food sensitivities, and then the mineral test. And then we would work together. We'd have 6 sessions over 4 months. And the investment is $4,000 or 3 monthly payments of $1,500. That includes the test. It includes all of our time together and my support along the way. I think this is also what a lot of doctors are missing, is you can't ask them a question between appointments. And that's what I'm here for. I would be available for you the whole time. I'd be explaining all of your test results, explaining what I think we should do about, explaining why, so that you understand everything. And you get to make the decision what you want to do. I'm giving the power back to you to make the changes to start sleeping better again. All right, so let's look at a couple case studies. So a client we'll call Eve was waking up in the night for the past 10 years. She was a real estate agent. She actually said she didn't have a lot of stress in her life, yet she felt stressed all the time. She felt like she shouldn't have been stressed, but she was. So she was tired, irritable, and anxious as well. She had a parasite and H. pylori and candida. She had low estrogen and progesterone from being on birth control, and she had liver congestion. So we worked to get rid of those pathogens in her gut. We worked to support her hormones. We worked to detoxify her liver. And after 3 months, she was sleeping incredible. And then Adam was waking up in the night for hours since he was 20. He's now 40. He was an architect, and he didn't have energy. These are his words. He didn't have energy, clarity, or creativity to do his job. And he was really worried about being able to do his job much longer. We found out he had a parasite in H. pylori. He definitely had a damaged gut. He had super high estrogen, which is common in men, but something that's not good. He had that slow oxidation mineral pattern I talked about. He had a lot of food sensitivities. He was sleeping better in 1 month after making these changes. And he lost 15 pounds in 2 months without even trying. And 6 months later, he said, I have regained the confidence, energy, and positivity that I always remembered throughout my life. So that made a big difference for him. I just want you to know that sleep is always figure outable. Even if you have been struggling for years, decades, since childhood, even if you have tried everything that you know to try, there's always a way to figure it out. And I am happy to help you do that if you're interested. Thanks so much for listening. I'm going to stop sharing and see if anyone has any questions. And yeah, if you want to type that you have a question too, I can unmute you if you like, if you want to ask it out loud. Let me know. And if not, we will end this and I will send you the replay in case you want it. All right, I don't see any questions. Oh, let's see. Oh yes, before investing 4K, yes. So yes, I should have mentioned this. I'm definitely happy to hop on a call with any of you who are interested in this. We can talk about what's going on with your sleep and see how I can help. And that is free of charge. So yeah, in the replay, I will send you a link to book a call with me if you'd like to do that for sure. Yes, thank you for asking that. Thank you, Kristen. Thank you, Sarah. Thanks everyone for coming. And if you aren't a member of my group, I have a Facebook group called Sleep and Insomnia Help for Adults. And I would love to see you in there. I know probably a lot of you are in there already, but perfect. But you are more than welcome to join. And I talk about these kinds of things all the time and how I can help. All right, and I'll be contacting you if you said you were interested in a call as well. All right, I hope you enjoy your day. I hope you get some better sleep tonight. And thanks for listening. We will be in touch. Thank you, Sarah. All right, guys, bye.